Yeah, I think we are on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right, everyone. Welcome to our session on strategies for quant. Joining us today is Ishita Gupta, alumnus of XLRI and currently working in the HR team with Quran. And of course, there's Sanjeev sir, founder for Eclavia Learning Resources. And today we'll be going over some strategies of how to prepare for quant. What are the patterns of question papers? What's strategies that people have used with success in the past? And what all are the things that you can maybe learn for or emulate if you're looking to formulate a given strategy? So, shall we start, Sanjeev sir?
Yes, we should. Hi, good morning, everybody. And hello, Shita and Siddhant.
Oh,
So as Siddhant has explained, in today's talk, we will try and focus on quant section of CAT and other competitive exams. Uh, we will take CAT as an example because it's better to focus on a particular exam so that we can discuss the pattern. But I am sure you'll agree that most of these exams, once you prepare for CAT and quantitative ability section in particular, then for the rest of the exams, your preparation is automatically kind of done. Uh, so I would start by first talking about the current pattern that is there for this section in CAT. For last 4 years now, we have 34 questions which are to be solved in 60 minutes. So you get less than 2 minutes for every question. And then you have probably a mix of questions from various areas. So from an area like geometry and trigonometry and probably coordinate geometry, you'll have about 6 to 7 questions. This is the most dominant area in terms of the number of questions asked. And then you have number system from which you will have 5 to 6 questions. And then you have other areas like time, speed, distance, percentages, profit and loss, um, mixtures and ratios, allegations, pipes and cisterns and all those. So you'll have not more than probably 4 to 5 questions from all these together. Then you also have other areas like algebra where you have quadratic equations, not very tough ones, very simple linear kind of quadratic equations. You have surds and indices and those stuff. There are other areas like permutation and combination and probability and all. But very basic kind of questions are asked from those areas. So Ishita and Siddhant, what we have done is, uh, our basic premise is that not everybody needs to go through the same structure of preparation. Every student needs a very, very personalized individual study plan based on his or her own strength areas and the weaknesses that he or she has. We also focus on the relative importance of the section in terms of how many questions are asked and of what difficulty level in the exam, and accordingly prepare the student. So we have divided this quant section of our preparation material into 5 broad areas. So these are number system, geometry, trigonometry, coordinate geometry. Then you have the third area as time, speed, distance, profit and loss, pipes and cisterns and those kind of stuff. Then you have algebra, and then you have set theory, Venn diagram, and permutation and combination and probability. These 5 areas: number system, geometry and related stuff, mensuration, coordinate geometry, etc. Then you have arithmetic, as we call it, like time, speed, distance, and profit and loss, and those stuff. Then we have algebra, and then we have set theory, Venn diagram, statistics, and probability. This is how we have divided. So then we try and assess the current level of preparedness or knowledge of every student through some screening tests that we have. And accordingly, we advise how much time the student has to spend and what all he or she has to study to what extent. Now, Ishita, we would want to know from you when you were preparing, and based on that, your advice to anybody who is now preparing for CAT or other such exams. What would be your overall generic advice to people who are not very strong in quant and who are probably from a non-engineering background like you, me, or Siddhant are? So what would be your broad probably top three advice or strategies that you would suggest to any aspirant.
So the number one thing I would suggest to them is focus on the areas that you know are going to end up being in a large number of questions, first of all. Second of all, if there are particular topics, for example, integration or calculus, which end up being on only one or two questions, but you might find particularly difficult because you yourself are from a non-technical background, then do not focus on them as much as you would if, you know, all the, for the other sections like arithmetic, for example, which has a comparatively larger number of questions. That would be my overall generic advice. Secondly, as much as you practice individual topics, I would highly recommend that you practice in a timed manner, because an institute like ours will probably help you
Yeah, sorry,
yeah.
some technical difficulties. We are back on now. Ishita, you were saying.
Yeah, so as I was saying, you should focus a lot more on your accuracy as compared to just trying to attempt a large number of questions with a very low amount of accuracy, because you have to keep in mind the negative marking aspect of these tests as well.
Okay. And you are saying that no matter how much you prepare, in any case, you are not going to be able to attempt all the questions. So there's no point actually spreading yourself too thin across all areas. Instead, you can focus on your strong areas and probably optimize your score, because uh, you would agree that probably 20-22 attempts would be a reasonably good number of attempts, Ishita, in quant.
Yeah, that would be a really good number of attempts, provided that you have a 90% accuracy rate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So will it help a candidate get say 99 percentile or thereabout if one is attempting about 22 questions?
So I would say that you have to, if you're focusing on a 99 percentile, then you have to see which are your, out of the three sections, which one is your absolute maximum strength, right? And which ones are the ones where you want to score an above 90 or say a 95 rather than a 99 percentile in all. Because even if you have like an above 90 or a 95 percentile in two of the sections, and a really good, like a 99.9 percentile is one which is your absolute strength, you'll still get a really good percentile, and you'll probably get a call from one of the top ranked IIMs and other institutes.
Okay. So more specifically, if we are talking of quant section right now,
Yeah.
is 22, 23 a good number to attempt to get 99 percentile in this section particularly?
I would say you have to be really focused on your accuracy, but then yes, it would be a good number. I would not recommend trying to attempt all 34 of them, because then there's a higher chance that the pressure will make you slip and you will end up making some, human errors and losing out on marks over there. Better an attempt of 20 or 22 and have a higher accuracy rate.
Okay. Siddhant, your take on, because both of you have done it recently, so you will be more familiar with the current pattern of exam and the level of competition.
Right.
So what is the kind of number that you think realistically, because of course it will slightly vary from year to year depending
Correct.
on how tough or easy the question is, but
Right.
still roughly about that many numbers would be good enough for anybody to get a 99 percentile, say 22, 23 attempts?
Yeah, I think if you can hit 24 questions and get all of them correct, you should be sorted. Because I remember when I took my papers, I had the first attempt that I did where I did not get through. I had made the mistake of trying to hit 32 questions, because in my head was, I need to get at least 26 or 27 right, and I tried to hit 32 questions and I ended up getting, I think, maybe 10 or so wrong. So that really brought my score down. I ended up with like a 80 something percentile in quant that year. So next year, when I was doing the paper, I just made it a point that even if I hit just 20 questions, as long as I can double check everything and make sure those 20 questions, I can get back to the question from the option, it means I'm correct. And that was my strategy, that I am not going to try and touch every question. All I want to do is solve one question, go back to the option, like go back to the question from the option to double check that my answer is correct, and then move on to the next question. So obviously you spend a minute extra per question, but then at the same time it helps you boost up your score, because you know for a fact that every question that you have touched, you have got it correct. So if you do 24 or 20, I think 24 should be enough. If you're feeling really ambitious, or maybe you're thinking that you may have gotten one or two wrong in the process, 26, I think 26 is more than enough.
Okay.
And Siddhant, actually adding on to your point, so quant is not an absolute strength for me either. Yeah, I was more of an other sections kind of a person. So for me, in my own attempt, I did about exactly 15 questions, but the accuracy was so high that I got an almost 93, 94 percentile over there
Okay.
in that particular section. So I think a focus on the higher accuracy, as you said, it just makes an absolute difference.
Correct.
Okay.
So you can see, as you go up the ladder, that gap between 93 to 95 and that 95 to 97, the number of questions you need to get correct rises. However,
Exactly.
if you are not looking to score a 99 in quant, and you are strong in, let's say, verbal or DI and LR, and you want to hit your 99s there, then as long as even you can get 15 or 16 questions 100% correct, you should be sorted, because that will push you over the edge to a 94 or a 95. And you have your other two strong sections to boost up your score for your overall percentile. So I think, it just boils down to the fact that what works best for you. For me also, when I was preparing, verbal was my strongest section. So I wasn't looking to score a very high percentile in one. I knew verbal, I hit like a 99.7 or something in verbal. So I knew that will boost up my score in my overall. So over here, I was just trying to make sure that I hit a comfortable 90 or a 95, because I have other sections to take care of my overall percentile.
Correct. So that is where, knowing yourself comes into the picture.
Correct, exactly.
And then preparing accordingly.
Right.
In fact, I would stick my neck out and say that you can, in fact, if you are finding few sections of quant too difficult, don't even prepare. I'll hang my neck out and say that you don't need to spend time on probably trying to solve quadratic equation problems or surds and indices or logs if you're really not very comfortable with them.
Correct.
Because in any case, if you are attempting 22, 24, it's good enough number. And from all the other areas put together, you can easily get that many questions and
Easily
focus on a 90% or plus accuracy.
And on top of it, once you go into that room prepared that I'm not going to touch these questions, that's time that you are saving. You don't look at a question, you try and solve it, then you fail, and then you move on, and you carry that extra pressure with you.
You already know
exactly
that if I'm finding a question on inequalities, probably I'm not going to touch it.
Exactly. So you just see that inequality sign and you move on to the next question. If you feel like, if you're left with 15 minutes at the end of your section and you have done your 24 questions, you feel like you can always come back to it. However, don't feel obligated that because it's a question, I have to attempt it. If you're not comfortable with that section, move on.
No, and Siddhant, that is rarely going to be the case. You'll not have time after you have done those 24 questions.
Exactly. Which is why, I've often seen this, like, a lot of people fall into this one trap. They get too invested in one question. And then towards the end of the paper, there are a lot of very low hanging fruits there. I think we have lost Ishita.
We have lost Ishita.
Yeah, just 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are back.
So Siddhant, what?
Right. So what I was saying was
that it is rarely going to be the case where you will
correct.
That you will have enough time left even after you have attempted a good number of 22, 24 questions. It will rarely be the case.
Right. Exactly.
So you will not probably have any time left after you attempted 22 or 24 questions in that section.
Which is why I advocate leaving these questions for the end, because it often happens that there are a few very low hanging fruits stuck in that 26 to 32 area. And if you get invested in that question 14, which is very complicated and which takes up 5 minutes of your time, you're going to miss these low hanging fruits. They are very easy to pick up. And again, as we have talked about this over and over again, every question is worth the same number of marks. So if you solve it, you're going to get the same number of marks. So if it's something difficult,
As a common
Exactly.
strategy, my question to both of you is, I would personally recommend this, but I just want to know your views. As a common strategy, would you suggest everybody to go through all the questions before one starts answering or attempting to solve those questions? I would say it is very, very important to do so. I mean, at least spend a good 3, 4, 5 minutes to go through the whole paper. The paper allows you to do so,
Right.
and then probably then decide which are the ones that you are going to attempt.
Right.
So I would say if you're able to do that in about 3 to 4 minutes maximum, then
Yeah.
you. Otherwise, when you are at each question and reading that question, you realize that maybe it will take me not 2 minutes, but maybe a 5 or 7 minutes. Maybe I'll have to think about this a little bit. You go on to the next one, and then you might have something that you want to come back to maybe later,
Right.
and then see which are the ones which you are most comfortable with and solve those first.
So you would say to each his own, his or her own, like what?
Right.
Yeah,
Probably.
exactly. Depends on your reading and comprehending speed.
Okay. So if we are able to probably go through that entire section in 3 to 4 minutes, it's a good thing to do probably, so that you are absolutely clear and you know which are the ones that you are going to attempt,
Right.
rather than just probably, even if you are going at a reasonable pace and you know that having a look at the question that this question is going to take you longer, probably you will still be left with some 3, 4, 5 in the end, which you could not even reach.
Right. And there's also another thing that, this has become more difficult in the last few years. Because prior to that, while it was a paper and pen based exams, it was very easy to scan through the questions. However, with now the online format, for subsequent question, you have to click on it, and then, there's a loading time that's there, and your clock doesn't stop while that page is loading. So because of that, I think now it's gotten more and more difficult to scan through the paper through.
Yeah, exactly. You really need to be prepared to have it in an online format. So even when you're and doing your sample papers, I would recommend they're on a screen. Then that will help you all the more, because usually we're not used to staring at a screen that long.
Correct.
Yeah, and probably you should try both these variants, probably first going through all the questions and then probably in some other attempt try and see going one by one and then deciding. Yeah. Okay.
The way I used to do the paper when I was preparing was that I would go at it question by question. I'd read a question. If I knew I could solve it, I'd solve it and move on. If I knew I couldn't solve it, it would take some time. Just 1 second. Right. If I knew, it would take me time, I'd move on to the next question. I'd flag it and move on to the next question. And I have also seen that, people usually tend to end their, first run of all the questions. And when I say first run of questions, it's leaving every question that you even have 1% doubt that you can't solve. So then at the end of it, you end up solving maybe 15 or 20 questions by the time the clock is hitting the 45-50-minute mark. So then in the last 10 minutes, you can come back and look at these questions. So, that's the approach I personally took. And this is something that you figure out, with time over, with practice and with time.
So when you're doing your practice tests, it's good to have, if you're giving an overall, say 20 practice tests, then maybe in some try a particular strategy, in some other try another strategy and see which is the one that works best for you.
Correct. That is the whole purpose of, in fact, taking the practice test, rather than just taking one after another and not learning from it.
Exactly.
Okay, one very important question which comes to my mind when I look at the quant section is that, the role of working the solution through the options, which is not applicable to other sections. VARC and DILR, you probably don't have this option or the luxury of actually exercising this option. But in quant, I would feel that probably 6 to 7 questions are such where you can work your way through the options given.
Right.
Of course, unless there should not be none of these kind of options there. But then in quant, you are actually able to solve some of the questions in a much easier and faster way if you just work your way through the options given.
Right.
How would you suggest this to be, or how much would you recommend this to be a part of the strategy? Because there are questions where you can probably find it easier to start applying each of the values given as options and then probably arrive at the solution. And probably one option will take you 5, 7, 10 seconds to probably work out. And so you will probably end up solving the question in less than a minute. So there are typically 5 to 7 questions in every year's CAT. How would you suggest, or how important do you think is this working your way up through the options given and probably ending up solving some of the questions in a lesser time
Yeah, I would say that
and more effectively?
it is a commendable strategy to take because it will save you a lot of time, but you have to identify which questions this is applicable to.
Correct.
So CAT really does try to your head a lot. So the options themselves will be really confusing and really close to each other. So you're not able to use estimates and guesstimates as properly as you could with a different set of options. So just see whether your calculation speed is that fast that you put that option value in X, and if you're able to get the question solved.
Right.
The speed has to be really fast and the options have to be distinct enough.
Correct. Very correct.
And I think there's also, with options, there's also the problem that no matter the way you approach it, there are questions where going through the options is going to take longer than solving the question directly. Because there are 4 options and it doesn't really happen very often that you hit the correct
No, this can't be.
option.
Yeah, no, this can't be a strategy for all the questions. I'm saying that there are typically 6 questions in the whole paper where you can apply, you can probably apply the strategy and probably end up getting a better result in a faster, quicker time.
But however, it is key to identify those questions and do it quickly enough. If you try to solve it, you quit halfway and then you go to the options, you're just wasting your own time.
Correct. So only one of the things you have to apply. You can't do both. I mean, half solving it, then going to the option.
Correct.
And it is while practicing that you need to really fine tune your strategy. That what kind of questions you are probably. So probably some percentages question and all. You can quickly look at the options and probably arrive at the solution rather than working your way through the problem.
Right.
Okay. One very important question that I'm interested in Ishita and Siddhant both. That quant is one area where you can actually get frustrated trying to solve a problem. English में VRC में नहीं होता है इतना. If you don't know properly answer to one question, you move on. You don't get so much bogged down by because you have worked out a solution and it's not coming out. And then how do you advise or suggest, and what has been your strategy to remain focused, not let one particular question take you off the track and probably not being able to answer rest of the questions. Some of them you could have probably answered correctly.
Right.
So I'm saying it's a emotionally and a draining kind of section where you can get emotionally attached to some problems. How do you recommend, or how have you done it yourself, recommend remaining focused even if 1 or 2 questions you are not able to solve after spending some time, and which may happen in the actual paper no matter how prepared you are, so as to be able to move on to the subsequent questions which you are actually able to solve without getting affected by what happened just with you.
Yeah, so I would say that in your identification of the problem itself, it should be such that you're able to see whether this question is going to take you time or not. And that frustration, because you know the question, you might have seen it before, and you know that you can solve this to a 60, 70 or even an 80%, but then not able to reach that answer, it can be really frustrating. So just make sure that even if you reach that stage, calm yourself down, look at the bigger picture. Looking at the bigger picture will always help you instead of getting stuck on one question.
Right.
Then move on. You can always tell your brain that you will come back to it later, and you may not, but then you have to focus on the next one.
Correct.
Siddhant?
I think that's pretty much it. And one more thing is, you need to delink your self-worth from that one question. A lot of times, you go into that frame of mind that how can I not solve this question? If I can't solve this question, how I'm going to, solve the rest of that paper? It's very important to understand that, it's not a reflection on your.
That is precisely what my, yes.
So in those cases,
that is exactly precisely what I had in mind.
I think people really need to remember that at the end of CAT, people will ask your percentile. They will not ask questions you got correct, which ones you didn't.
Correct, correct.
Oh yeah. Like it was like, this question was very tough. Could you get it or not? So it's
Yeah, it won't be
No,
like
it
that.
won't be like that.
If you have a 99 percentile, you have a 99 percentile. It does not matter which questions
Correct.
Exactly.
that
And
percentile.
that is why it's so very important to maintain your equanimity and when move on
Correct.
from question to question without getting.
And at that
Okay.
point, it's just the
So
basic
does that
thing
also, just one question, does that also come with a lot of practice? Because I would personally think that to get emotionally detached from a question will also come from a lot of practice.
It comes from practice.
So,
it comes from practice.
Yeah, cracking CAT is all about practice, practice, and practice. And practice is not about your concepts, it's about that frame of mind. When you're in a pressurized situation, whether your brain is able to handle that or not, whether those emotions, when they come at you again and again, your brain will get used to it. And then when you're actually giving CAT, it will become a status quo for it. And then you will do much better.
Right.
I agree. So any last words from the two of you with respect to this section in particular, quant section in particular, or anything after that on overall strategy for CAT, and some words for the CAT aspirants for this year?
So I would just say that keep your head screwed on. Trust your brain. It knows more than you think it does. And as I said, practice, practice, and practice.
Okay.
Yeah, same. Actually,
Siddhant?
quant is one area where you can't get away without practicing. For VA and RC, maybe you're a reader and you don't need practice. Or for DILR, maybe you have always been into puzzles and you don't need that much practice. Quant doesn't work that way. You need practice, and there's no other shortcut to getting to that 95 in a quant other than practice. So the more it's one of those sections where when you practice, it helps you out. No matter no exceptions there.
Okay. So to add on to that, just one last question, because I realize of late, probably 2015 onwards, the pattern of questions is such that you don't really need to apply some direct formula or theorems and all. You need a lot of application of mind just to understand the question.
Right.
Once you are able to understand and probably understand it correctly, then the solution part is not that difficult.
Yeah.
So
you need to
probably
identify what the question is actually trying to ask you in a convoluted sense.
Right.
Absolutely.
Once you get
So in
that,
fact,
then you will be able to actually answer your questions.
Correct. So it is rarely the case that CAT will ask you a question where you can directly apply some formula or some theorem and probably calculate the answer. It's never going to be the case. It's more of kind of that mental environment where you try and understand it.
Right. So yes, we were talking about the closing words, and we had
Yes.
some question that we were talking about.
Yeah, I was just saying that the questions are such that you cannot apply some formula or some theorems. So it in a way to some extent negates any inherent advantage that probably people from strong quantitative backgrounds would have in these kind of exams.
Right.
And even for those people who are from engineering background, they need to probably think of solving these problems in a very different way. None of these problems are such where you can directly apply some formula or theorem.
Right.
So a lot of mental ability is required to be able to first understand what the question is saying, as Ishita was also saying. And a lot of it's more like it's logical reasoning and maths combined. The questions are of a nature that is more of a probably logical reasoning and maths both combined together. So if you have able to probably decipher what the question is saying, then your half the job is done. The calculation part would be relatively easier, not that hard. And
exactly. If it was that direct, I think it would be very similar to a board level question.
Correct.
Instead of interest level type of a question.
Right.
Yeah, no, in fact, even in CAT earlier, they used to have probably direct kind of questions. In fact, at least in DILR, I know very well when I took it, it was like you're given some bar charts, line graph and all, and you say which particular item has grown by what percent, and that is all. Right. Of course, the number of questions were much higher that time. But now the level of difficulty is different. The competition is also very intense, but a lot of mental aspect is now involved there. It's not just about what you have mugged up over a period. You may go prepared with a lot of formulas and theories in your head pertaining to quant, but you may not really get to apply those because a lot of mental work needs to be done while solving those papers. Okay, so we will just about to conclude. We'll just conclude this. As Ishita, you had just said some final words on this to the aspirants. You just said that practice, 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 and keep your head high. That so, Siddhant, any final words from you on this?
No, I think, it boils down to that. It boils down to practice. Quant is one area where you can just, not mindlessly, but then the more smart, dedicated, and tuned in practice that you do, it will always pay off.
Right. So my final words on this would be, yeah, of course, with respect to quant, I would say that anybody with a focused approach and who knows his or her strength and weaknesses properly and works on them can see through it and get probably a decent score of 99 percentile and above. And overall to the aspirants, I would say, as I have been saying in the last few videos, that you can make it. And we would be happy to see you in one of those campuses, one of the top 4 or 5 IIMs or XLRI or FMS or Jamnalal Bajaj. So start believing and working towards it. You can surely be one of those who are found in the campus of any of these institutes in June 2021. So all the best. And Ishita, thank you so much. We would love to have you more often to discuss more such areas where we can be of any help to the students, the aspirants for CAT and other competitive exams. Siddhant, like always, is one of the people who are responsible for designing, this course, and so he'll be here. And we will try and bring more value to all the aspirants. So stay in touch. I hope you enjoyed this session, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that brings us to today's session, the end of it. So as always, the website, we'll upload the webinar to the website and our YouTube channel. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with us on our Facebook page or on the website. And we'll be happy to help you with anything that you might need. Also, the resources that we talked about, the mock tests, they are now up and live on the website. So you can go and check those out. And if there's anything else that we can help us with, we'll drop us a line. And that's about it. And thank you very much. And we'll see you again soon.